as we do every week, we take two teams that are facing off on Tuesday nights, and we are going to break down the game in detail. We'll talk about their futures, talk about them generally and where they're at. But first, we're going to do the game breakdown. As a reminder, everything that we talk about, everything that we discuss is available in the Action Network app. The best way for you to track your picks, get all that information. Also, make sure to check out all the great podcasts on the Action Network Podcast Network. That's a network podcast network somehow. You got the Action Network podcast with Raheem and Brandon Anderson, Fantasy Flex, Big Bets on Campus. Check them all out wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, let's get into this. So we decided, we look at this slate. We don't have TNT's off this week for whatever reason. I thought that was weird. But tomorrow, as we're recording this on Tuesday, record this Tuesday, we've got an advanced line courtesy of our friends at PointsBet. We looked at the slate. NBA TV does have a doubleheader. So we went ahead and we went with Kings Lakers. It's late game, 10:30 start. Lakers obviously in a bad way this season, struggling to get out of it. However, they are 8.5 point favorites in this contest. Total is 226. Raheem, let's start here. What does your model say for the total on this game?
Okay, my model makes this game 229, and it makes perfect sense for this game to naturally go over when you look at the fact that these teams have played twice. They played to a final score of 117-92. In that game, the Kings shot just 20% from three. The other game, they played to a 141-137 triple overtime game. So this feels like a high-scoring game between two defenses that really can't stop anybody. We look at the Kings, they're 21st in defensive rating, giving up 114 points per 100 possessions over the last 2 weeks. The Lakers, over the last 2 weeks, giving up 114 points per 100 possessions over the last 2 weeks. They're 22nd. So neither one of these teams are going to be able to stop each other. I think you're in for a fast-paced game where both teams are flying up and down the court.
So this is kind of interesting. So we have that advanced line from PointsBet, which we really appreciate. However, I'm looking at it right now, and like this total is only out at a select number of books. There is a 232 that dropped. So that's a wide range between 226.5, which we got from PointsBet, and 232. And you had it at 229, right?
Yeah, I think that 232 is definitely the right number.
Okay. So if it's 232, you got 3 points of value there on the under. Do you want to go back the other way?
That's tough for me. You know what? I mean, they did play the
Because I'll tell you, I'm probably leaning towards the under.
I think I am leaning towards. I can't fade my model that much in this situation. I just can't. I mean, obviously, there's no Anthony Davis in this game, no Rashawn Holmes. I think he's still in the protocol. I do like the under there. I think I would lean towards that direction.
The Lakers this season, because I want to take a look at this. Their defense has been all over the place. It's actually played a little bit better as of late. Okay, so overall, the overs have still been hitting. They did, however, they've hit the under in 2 of their last 3. Now, one was versus Minnesota, who was missing everybody, right? So that one's tough. The over with Portland hit. That's no surprise. Portland's defense is abysmal. The under hit in the Memphis game. It looks like if they go against bad defenses, they put up a big number, right? That's kind of been the thing, is that if the Lakers offense has put up big numbers as of late versus bad defensive teams. If we look at the Kings this season defensively are 21st in half court defense, 25th in transition defense. And over at dunks and threes, which factors in your strength of schedule, Sacramento comes out as actually worse. They're 28th in defensive rating. The Lakers have bumped up a little bit. They're up to top 18 at least. Not good, but 18. I mean, this total's higher, right? Like we're at a higher mark. I've got it way lower. Like I'll just say right now, like mine's showing, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on, honestly, with my model for why it's doing this. For some reason, with the Kings in particular, it keeps having a lot of faith that they're going to have better defensive performances than I'm like, I don't really think that's going to happen. Like I keep looking at their performance level and still thinking that they're not going to be able to do it. But I actually think some of this, one of the reasons it pops on the under, I'm expecting a better defensive performance out of the Lakers. And some of that, I will say this has been true. They've moved LeBron to the 5 and they've kind of gotten some success there. Like, honestly, this is part of it. No Anthony Davis, so you go like, oh, their defense is going to be worse. Their defense was bad.
Yeah.
Like, their defense was bad with Anthony Davis. I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm saying he's been bad this season. And so for me, I kind of start to wonder if maybe there's an overestimation of the impact defensively in the market versus that. What do you have for the side with the Lakers at 8.5 on the spread?
Oh, I like Sacramento in this game. I have this at around Lakers -4. I just, to me, I don't understand how the Lakers are laying 8 points to anybody. Like, this is insanity. Like, insanity to me. Like, to me, I don't get it. I know the Kings have had some bad losses, but when you look at their last couple of games, both of these teams have won 3 out of their last 4 games. So to me, you got the Kings pretty much at full strength minus Rashawn Holmes, and not having Anthony Davis out there, it's not the worst thing in the world. And you got a Kings team that you got guys like Buddy Hield who can shoot the basketball. Like, to me, I'm looking at these teams as equally matched teams. So, obviously you got LeBron James on the other end, but the way Russell Westbrook is turning the ball over, to me, at 8 points, I'm taking the Kings in this matchup.
My conservative model actually likes the Lakers more in this matchup. I've got it right around this. I've got it -8.2. So a tiny edge towards the Kings. My more aggressive model honestly has it as it favors the Kings even more. It's got it at 6. Let's talk COVID for a minute. So no Frank Vogel, no David Fizdale as the interim coach replacing the coach that's out with COVID, has COVID. No Rashawn Holmes in this game. We don't have any sort of updates on anybody else. Outside of LeBron, I think hasn't COVID. Russ had a bout with it, didn't he? Yeah, Russ was in protocols.
Yeah.
So most of the Lakers have been in protocols. Most of the Kings that I know have been in protocols because Fox was in, right? So is there anybody that we're kind of worried might? That's kind of my only thing is whenever there's one guy that's in, I'm worried we're gonna get to game day and then 2 more are gonna pop, right?
Yeah, I think that's been an issue for me too. Like, I got burnt the other day on the Spurs game because it appeared as though everybody was playing, and then next thing you know, you got 3 guys in protocol, and it's just like, oh my god. So, yes, Holmes just popped into protocol on Saturday, and then we haven't heard anything. I know Terrence Davis is out for this matchup. He's a big rotational piece. I don't know. It's kind of like Russian roulette, honestly, with some of this stuff. Like, it's just you never know who's going to pop up on it next.
So we chose to talk about this game. I'll ask you, like, are you going to bet this?
I think I may play the under because I do think you made a great point. And then with my model making this, look, if this pops up at 232, I'm going to assume that the public is going to push this even higher. And I'm going to be looking to jump on the under. But at 229, like at 226, I kind of still got to play the over. Like, I just think when you look at the track record of these two teams, like, they're going to get up and down the floor. And then the Kings, the thing about the Kings is they push the pace. They are 9th in pace, but they're 3rd in offensive length of possession. So at 226, I think that's clearly a bad number.
Lakers are also, 9th in offensive possession length in terms of shortest. They got the 9th shortest,
and they're second in pace as well. So,
and the Lakers are. This is wild. The Lakers are 2nd in defensive possession length. So teams are taking early shots versus them. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
All right, so at 226, you like the over.
Yeah, 226, I like the over. 232, I'm going under.
Okay, and you like the Kings, but you want to wait to make sure that everybody's playing.
Yeah, I like the Kings in this match. I just think, to me, I'm not willing to lay close to double digits with this Lakers team. Obviously, they covered the 5.5 against Portland, but we've spoken at length about how this Portland team, they can't defend, and they're in a total tailspin. But I think against everybody else is pretty much live against this team.
they're in an interesting spot. I'll say that. I think the Lakers are in an interesting spot because like I've been the one maintaining like, hey, like I'm not buying out completely on them. I think that there's a spot to buy them. Like I think that they'll probably get it together. It does keep kind of spiraling, which is obviously like a huge concern. Here's maybe one of the issues to look at. The Lakers, according to Cleaning the Glass, are minus 1.4 in spread differential versus bottom 10 teams in net rating. So they've had this really easy schedule. They're 10-4 straight up, right? So they're getting wins versus them, but they're only 17th in point differential versus these bottom teams. They're only plus 4.2. So even versus the bad teams, they haven't performed well. That's probably indicative of where this is at. Yeah. My only problem, I guess I will not be playing the Kings, even though I have like a slight edge on both of these. The reason I won't be playing the Kings is I've played the Kings a number of times, and it just kind of seems like they have these games where their inherent inconsistency with they will just have games where you're just like, they were in it and then they're gone. They're just gone.
I know exactly. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've kind of gotten burnt on Kings games in every opposite direction. So I actually was on the Dallas Mavericks minus 1.5 last week against the Kings. And obviously the Kings made the comeback and then they hit the game winning 3. And then the following night they play again. And it's like the Kings are up double digits in the second half. The Mavericks actually take a double-digit lead. They tie the game, and then the Mavericks go on like a 30-3 run, and the game's over. So it's just like they're a tough team to really judge. But I just think, to me, I try to fade the Lakers every chance I get because they are a public team. We know that the odds makers are going to charge you a premium to back them, even with them not being as good. So I just think this number is a little bit too high. Teams tend to get up for the Lakers. I just think at 8, I don't understand the line. So I am going to wait and see what the public does with this game. I know 538 actually makes this game 4, Lakers minus 4. So it is very comforting to know that my model isn't alone on where I sit with this game. So I'm going to check out the protocols and see what happens.
We're gonna get to Tuesday, and it's gonna be like Buddy Hield or somebody. I mean, wasn't Barnes out with COVID too?
Yeah, Barnes was out. I think Barnes was out like sometime last week.
I'm gonna be real with you. I do not have like a, normally I would say that I could be on top of the news. There's been so much COVID stuff I can't track. I can't keep up with it. I have no idea who's had it and who's not. And that's the new phase that we're entering into. I want to talk about this with you real quick. Mm-hmm. This seems like the new phase we're entering into, where it's not just who's out. You got to remember who's in, because they will most likely have had COVID, and this variant, so they'll have immunity, so they won't be likely to be out again. Like we're gonna have we will have like, this is part of the thing is Omicron's ripped through the league so fast. We're gonna have like 3 months where if another variant doesn't come through, there's going to be a big enough herd immunity in the NBA along with the boosters, along with the vax, to keep them up for a while. So like, that's like the good news is we're exiting into this. Like that was what I was saying before when I got back from G League Showcase. That's what I heard from executives. Everybody was like, yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to continue to be bad. But by mid-January, everybody's going to be boosted. Everybody's going to have had it. And we're going to be out of it. And you can tell that the league is kind of getting there because they rescheduled the games today that were postponed in one big chunk. They just did a big release today of the schedule and updated it and moved a bunch of games around. I think one of the reasons they were waiting to reschedule was specifically because they wanted to get through the other side of this outbreak that they were having.
The one thing I'm curious about is, how are things being handled with the players who aren't vaccinated? I mean, obviously you got Kyrie Irving coming back into the lineup. He's going to be playing on Wednesday. Like, how do the rules differ for him? And it's just like, I'm actually worried. Like, it's like, how can I say this? It's like almost like if he gets infected, it's like, does that cause a whole new outbreak amongst people? It's just, there's so much I just don't know how to approach.
Sacramento this season is 5-7 against the spread as a road dog. The Lakers as a home favorite. I'm going to imagine this number is bad. Yep. They are 6-13, 32% against the spread as a home favorite this season. That's via teamrankings.com. So not a great spot. I can't bet the Kings, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's ugly. It's definitely ugly. But, I mean, it's just – it's the Lakers. I mean, I'm just looking at this team. Like, I really don't understand. I don't know how you back this team laying anything more than 5. I mean, I don't think they even covered the other night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they were shorthanded. So,
well,
it's just –
all right, let's get into this because we've talked about the picks for this. We like the under at 232 after the public hits it. If you see a number that's close to what PointsBet gave us, which was 226.5, you should hit the over. Like over to, would you say over to 230, under at anything over 232?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. And we'll see where the market kind of grades out. Again, we're recording this on Monday night. Let's do the big picture, which this is where we get into kind of like the details on these teams. What is your big frustration and your big skepticism with the Lakers? I know you said, like, I don't know why they're favored, but like, what are your specific issues with this team?
Okay, I think my specific issues right now is that they really can't stop anybody defensively. And it's just like, I think that's the biggest thing for me is that guys tend to have big games against them. I mean, we saw it on Christmas Day. Patty Mills went off. It's just every night there's a different guy. And then I think the biggest issue is that Russell Westbrook is just turning the ball over way too much. He had 7 turnovers the other day against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if your starting point guard is going to turn the ball over that much, you're at a disadvantage. And then, I mean, obviously you have a guard like Russell Westbrook who really can't space the floor. I mean, he is shooting just 30% from 3, which is, I mean, better than it has been in previous years, but he's still taking 4 threes per game. So to me, I see a lack of two-way players as a whole. Like, I see guys who can score like Malik Monk. I see guys like Wayne Ellington who could shoot the ball, but I don't see anybody like an Alex Caruso who can do things on both ends of the floor.
That since I'm trying to get the numbers since Davis went down to get a sense for exactly what the kind of team that they've been since he's been out. Because I know they've had success with the small ball LeBron at 5 lineups. What I do think is interesting, so this is since the 18th. Their best minutes have been like the Dwight minutes have been really good, comparatively speaking. They've only been minus 2.5. That's good for them this season. DeAndre Jordan has played 42 minutes. They have a net rating of minus 43 in those minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Like DJ is unplayable. He's just unplayable. And that's why they've had to go to the small ball 5. I thought it was notable that LeBron said they asked him about him playing 5 and if he was tired, if it banged him up, and he was like, no, I feel good.
Oh,
like,
man.
That's that. I'm not saying, I'm just saying I would be reading into that as like, hey, Anthony, maybe you should get your ass into the post.
I just looked up the Lakers statistics as a favorite. They're 15-23. 39% is a favorite this year.
Oof.
So it's just like, I mean, historically, what we're seeing this year is that we just have a team in which the market continues to misprice.
That's
so
crazy. Why do we think that they're being mispriced? Because usually I would just be like, well, they're a high profile team that's supposed to be good and they're a public team. Like they typically have always been a little overvalued. Like that they're like the Cowboys. No offense to you, Cowboys fan.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So like they're the public team, right? Like I'm betting on the Lakers. But this year, everybody knows that they're busted. Like everybody knows that they're broken. So I'm surprised that the market still hasn't been able to find a bottom on them because I thought this was interesting. I looked up as a dog this season. All of a sudden, the Lakers go to 7-5. Like they're good with. So it kind of says honestly that the Lakers, if the market adjusts and really hammers them, it overcorrects on them.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
But in all these spots, they're simply giving them too much credit in handling the bad teams, I guess.
That's exactly what it is. Like, and I think if you look at the spread list, and Bet Labs has this, if you don't have Bet Labs, you need to get Bet Labs. As an 11-point favorite, they're 0-1. As a 10.5-point favorite, they're 0-3. As a 9.5-point favorite, they're 1-0. 8, they're 1-0. As a 7.5-point favorite, they're 0-2. As a 7-point favorite, they're 0-1. So these big numbers, they aren't covering. It's just like they just aren't covering these big numbers this year. Like even as a 5.5-point favorite, they're 0-2.
That's also interesting because, okay, so they're 13-9 straight up versus teams under 500. That's actually not a good number. They have a lot of losses to teams under 500, comparatively speaking. In the Western Conference, you want to try and be below 10. They're already at 9, and we're not even halfway through the season. Now, those numbers are up for a lot of teams. Like Memphis has 9 losses. The Clippers have 8 losses. The Nuggets have 6, right? So, like, we have a lot of parity in the Western Conference in particular this season. And so the numbers for losses versus teams under 500 are pretty low, but they're also, I'll say this, they're only 4-10 versus teams over 500. So they're good against the spread against these good teams, it would look like, but they're also not getting the wins straight up either. And that's what's crazy is like they're 17-19, 2 games under 500, and yet they continue to be overvalued by the market. Like trying to figure out an accurate thing on this. Do you have off the top of your, can you look up real quick what you have them power rated?
Yeah, I can do that.
Because I think that's an interesting question of just trying to figure out where in the scheme of things that team sits, because like dunks and threes in adjusted net rating has the Lakers all the way down at 23rd because they have a negative net rating and they haven't played anybody. They have an incredibly easy schedule. It's about to get really difficult.
Yeah, I have them 23rd as well.
Okay, you got them 23rd. I'm going to look up what I've got on mine as well. So this is part of it is there's no real reason why the market would continue to support them, especially because I don't feel like the fans are necessarily like, oh boy, I love me some Lakers. They're actually really good. They don't have a good record, but a bad point differential where we're like, hey, they're not as good as their record. They seem very much like they are what their record is. They're 17-19.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm consistently like every single game where I see them in a big spread, I just feel like, all right, I just have to fade the Lakers. And I just continue to see it night in and night out. So maybe this is a question that we should ask like a bookmaker because I'm just not.
Yeah. It's a good question.
I think every single year there's a team in any sport where it just doesn't make sense. And I think this year is the Lakers.
I actually have them pretty high. My model for basically this spits out your average performance versus an average team. I've got them 12th. I've got them right behind Milwaukee, who's obviously had all the injuries. And that's interesting to me in that I'm way off on the Lakers. I'm also like the Celtics are below them, and the Celtics are way high in net rating, adjusted net rating, like all these metrics. Like they're a team that looks like they're better than they are. I'm going to be kind of curious to see how that shakes out. Let's talk about the Kings really quick because we haven't talked about them at all, and that's easy because they're the Kings, right? But here's the thing. Yeah, I talked to people around the league, and the last thing I reported on them was that the league. People around the league were like, you know what? I hear that like Barnes and Hield are gettable. But then I talked to like another person who was like, how many times do I hear that? Every year I hear that you can get Barnes and Hield, and we call and it's torture trying to talk them into some sort of deal. There's always been known to be a lot of cooks in that kitchen. Like it's just always been known that there's a lot of moving parts with ownership, minority ownership, and the front office. And you were always trying to figure out, it's been simplified since Monty McNair took over. But I still think that this is my question. Is like, if you're the Kings, why aren't you tearing the floor up? Like, why aren't you tearing the carpet out? You've got Fox, and let me know, because you always have like these really interesting takes on guys. Raheem, what are your thoughts on De'Aaron Fox and where he kind of sits in the league?
De'Aaron Fox, but I just don't. To me, he's one of those mid-tier guys who great scoring guard, not a great defender. I mean, when you look at his 3-point percentage, he's still not a great shooter. So I'm not going to lie to you. I would love him in Philadelphia, but he's not a number one. And like if they told me, hey, Ben Simmons and Barnes for Ben Simmons for Barnes and Fox, I would love it. Like I would drive him to the airport. But I just don't think he's a guy that you're building around. I think he's a supplementary piece. Like I think he's on the level of a Colin Sexton, and he really hasn't made the leap into being that all-star player yet. So I mean, I like him, but I just don't. He's not untouchable for me, and I don't know. They're kind of just treating this team like they have a superstar player, and they don't.
And not give up on it because they almost made the playoffs in the bubble year, right? Like they were hanging and they were almost there, and then they fell off last year, and then Walton gets fired this year, and like Alvin's been just livid with this team. Like he's just like, what is happening? He said the other night it was one of the most embarrassing losses in his career, and he's been in the NBA forever, and
man,
I can't understand why. Especially, I don't understand why Barnes isn't like, hey, I appreciate it, but like credit to Harrison for just like continuing to do his job.
I mean, does he just want to remain in California?
Maybe that's.
I mean, he played in Golden State, Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento's not. I mean, it's not that far away.
No, it's not. It's not. So that's maybe part of it. But boy, if I was for his career, I would want to go. I still don't understand why nobody's taking a flyer on Hield. I understand all of the concerns with Hield, especially early in his career. Like one of the hits on Hield was just basically, well, look, he's this great shooter, but we don't think that he can operate in a complex offense. We think that that his basketball IQ isn't high enough. It's not about intelligence, it's basketball IQ, which is very different. But that was the kind of the knock on him, was like he couldn't play that brand. I'm at the point now where I'm like, look, he's been playing the league long enough. You're just going to get smarter just having played in the league, like just time spent. So I don't know why these teams aren't making moves for him. Like I think he's out there as like a high caliber guy to go get. But this is all about like what team should go get Sacramento. I'm wondering like what the Kings should do. I mean, I think they should start over on the coaching front and hire a young assistant who's got a good reputation. Try and find somebody that's got a real upside factor in them. But I also just feel like they're going to need another franchise player. They thought it was going to be Fox, and it's not. Fox just isn't good enough.
It's just not him.
I'm with you. I like Fox. I think that in Philly, he'd be awesome, even without the shooting component. He's just not good enough to raise the floor. You got to have a guy that's so good, he just raises the floor of the team. And in order to do that, you're going to have to tank aggressively. Like this is the problem. They're still kind of hanging. Like they can pivot if they do it right now, but they need to start moving pieces because they really needed to transition, because this is one team where we are back to, I think you just got to, like, if they don't make major changes, I'm back to where I was 2 years ago, which is it's the Kings. Let's just take the under on the win total. Let's just go under. Why bother with it? Like, we just know that this franchise isn't serious.
It's frustrating for me because I like a lot of these players, like individually as just role guys. Like I mean, I love Buddy Hield. I'm still mad the Lakers, and I am a Lakers fan. I'm a Sixers fan and a Lakers fan. I'm mad the Lakers didn't go after Hield as opposed to Russell Westbrook, because I think any team in this league could use a shooter of his caliber. He's just very dangerous. I like Halliburton. I think he's a guy that I would want to build around. Fox is solid. He's just not the superstar player. And then obviously Barnes has proven that he can be a big time wing on a championship contender. Or, I mean, he's not going to be Kevin Durant, of course, but he's a guy I would take him over Tobias Harris. So right. It's just, I just don't think they have the piece to raise the floor, like you said.
So have you just peeled back entirely with this COVID stuff? Are you just like, I'm waiting until it settles?
No, I picked my spots really, really, really. Like, I mean, tonight, I think you kind of have to use this COVID stuff to your advantage. And if you look at the Washington Wizards tonight, I'm all over the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte Hornets got blown out by the Phoenix Suns yesterday. They come back. They're pretty much full strength. Everybody is out except for PJ Washington, pretty much. They're playing a Washington Wizards team that's missing Montrezl Harrell, Brad Wanamaker, Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, they're just pretty much depleted. So I'm looking at the Hornets as 2-point dogs. I'm all over that. So I'll jump on situations like that. And then some of these other games, I'm just kind of handicapping them regularly. And I mean, you look at teams like the Brooklyn Nets. I think a lot of these top tier teams are kind of being overrated this year. Whether it's the Lakers, whether it's the Brooklyn Nets, whether it's even the Boston Celtics. I mean, just because they have such dynamic playmakers in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and I think I'm finding an advantage in that, just because at the end of the day, these are still NBA teams, and if these teams aren't getting regular reps together, even if they hop in the lineup for 1 or 2 games, they're playing against a team that has it all together. So I'm not playing volume, but on any given night, I can have 2 or 3 plays, and then the next night I might have nothing.
One edge I've been kind of targeting is focusing on teams that have really good development systems, and they're able to identify guys. So if the Nuggets sign a guy, I have a lot of confidence that guy's going to be pretty good. They've signed some dudes like Davon Reed's been great for them. Great for them. They've been shorthanded, and the guys that they brought in have been good. That's been their MO. The Wolves are another one where they have a front office, I think, that's underrated. And Chris Finch is like knows the G League and knows that system. And they pulled up guys, and they obviously got the win versus Boston. There's been opportunity. Like the Wolves have done well, even though they've been without all their guys in hanging, because one, the coaching system is good, and they bring in guys. If you're taking shots on veterans that you're just like, well, we'll just bring in this guy. Like, I don't know. I'm just putting that name here. Isaiah Thomas. Like, if that's where you're going,
yeah,
you don't have, like, you're not scouring the G League to find guys that are like, oh, this guy can play, or this guy's been over in Europe, or like, I know this guy. Like, the connections aren't there. You're just pulling up guys with name value. They're like, we know that guy, so I guess that one's it. So I think there's been a little bit of value on that. And then, I mean, I'm on Miami, and I'll let you know, like, I'm on Miami versus the Warriors. Miami's obviously shorthanded. You know, Bam's out. They got a bunch of dudes that are banged up. Dedmon's out. But Miami's shown consistently that they can get guys to kind of hang in. They can just, Spo's such a good coach. Their system is regimented. They will hang in these spots. So that's how played it.
We actually missed you on the betcast the other day. I think the big edge is actually on totals. And one of the reasons I say that is because obviously 1 or 2 guys can drastically alter the impact of a total. Yeah. So I know the betcast the other day we did on New Year's Eve, the Phoenix Suns played the Boston Celtics, and the Phoenix Suns didn't have any centers. DeAndre Ayton's out. JaVale McGee is out. And I know Jalen Smith is becoming a thing, but you kind of knew that the way the Suns had their lineup structured, and having Jalen Smith in, it was going to be a track meet. And I think that's exactly what we saw. So I actually gave out the over on that game. I think the over was 216. It ended up closing around 218 or so. And then at halftime, I actually doubled down on the over. So I think those are little good advantages that you can find in the totals, because you can see how one player's impact is going to drastically impact the strategy and the defense and the offense for both teams.
All right, let's go wrap it up for buckets for Tuesday. Thanks for joining us on the big picture. Tuesday night, 7:00 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel. We record Wednesday workshop. Raheem's best bets. I'm going to have a few best bets this week. It's going to be a great slate. We'll have it loaded up for you. Check it out on YouTube live at 7:00 Eastern. If you miss it, it is a podcast as well. Check it out in this feed. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you guys again next time. Let's get buckets.